Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am joined here by Yona. What's up, man?
Not much, not much. Good night rest, actually. What about you?
Yeah, good sleep, good sleep. All regenerated, back and ready for day 2 of the DSCL Bootcamp. I'm Grubby, and together we are. I really think I should put this thing on my head, or don't change the direction of my head. I thought I had a nice trick. Anyway, I'll fix it later. Together we are here to coach 6 disciples, people who qualified through 6 qualifiers, all winners in their own right of the qualifier. They're here in Nijmegen, in the Netherlands, and we're doing a live bootcamp. Yesterday we had 5 different themes where we basically explain various different concepts of the game, see how you can use them to help make you better. And today we're going to focus a little bit more on various kinds of settings, some tutorials, some Q&A, and we're also going to be doing a clan war between the players.
Yeah, I think yesterday was more of a rigid segment. We kind of told the players what they were supposed to practice and what they were supposed to do. Well, today we're giving them more general tutorials, and some of the players might have their own questions, and we're going to give them input on that.
So one of the things that we hope to impart to the players here, as well as some of the people at home who may be watching, or maybe you're watching this on youtube.com/DSC League. One of the things we get a lot of questions about when we're streaming or when we're coaching is, what kind of settings do you use in StarCraft 2? What kind of settings do you use in Windows? And this is the perfect opportunity to answer some of these questions. So if you don't mind, first of all, I'd like to show a few StarCraft settings, which can help you to fine-tune and have the most effective setup.
Yeah, keep in mind some of these things are always subjective. There's no perfect setting, but a lot of these settings are generally accepted to be better for gameplay.
Yeah, and of course, I like some eye candy too. It's perfectly possible. If I was a pure casual player, I would put everything on Ultra, and the computers here by CM Storm definitely can handle that. A great cooler. Woo! Broke the mic. But yeah, what I usually do in the graphic settings is what was perceived to be the best way to see cloaked units. Now, I know there are some of you out there who like hybrid settings. Personally, I'm not that much of a fan. Do you use hybrid settings, Jona?
No, I like to use my own kind of hybrid where I put shaders on medium or high and models on high.
Okay.
But I don't like the hybrid settings made by, I think it was Jack Attack.
Like the complete one.
Yeah,
on
I don't
TL.
like the editing the variables and stuff. I prefer this, but
I used to edit the variables with the hybrid, but the issue for me was that I need to bring special, like a notepad TXT to every tournament.
yes,
And
I
I
don't.
found it more of a troublesome, couldn't save certain settings. So I like to keep it low barrier because I play on a lot of different stations.
Yes, I had the same problem. Plus, I didn't want to risk not being able to play with my settings if something changed or got patched.
Exactly.
I like to keep my stuff in the game.
Exactly. So basically what I do is put everything on low to remove all the useless fluff like portraits moving, even though it can be fun and look nice, but we're talking hardcore now.
Hardcore.
Texture on ultra, and I put effects on ultra. This was generally believed like a few years ago. I don't know if it's still true. There's a lot of smart people out there with great settings, but this was believed to be the best way to see cloaked units like burrow movement roaches, observers, dark templars. Someone might have a better way. If you do, tweet it to @DSC League, and we may still be able to deal with that. But this is what I believe is the best way. Ultra, shaders and shadows on medium. You may be able to achieve the same result if you do something with variables, but again, I like to keep it easy. And if you're a Protoss, you have to put this on medium and this on high in order to have the pylon have a full warp field instead of a dotted line of where you can warp in. And I think that looks visually much more pleasing, and it's more clear as well. Vertical sync doesn't need to be on. I don't know about this actually.
Anti-aliasing, it's like it makes the line smoother, but it's not useful, so it doesn't need to be on either.
Okay. Well, sound. You don't need ambient sounds. Interface, I put it lower, but that's all very subjective. One thing that can help is to put game volume lower during alerts, so you hear the nuclear bombs and everything. Voice chat is irrelevant for controls. Do you use reduced mouse lag?
Yes, I do.
Jona?
I one time played at Copenhagen Games, and I was used to having it turned off, but my mouse actually started stuttering, like skipping pixels and stuff, until I switched it on, and after that I just, whatever, I'll just keep it on everywhere and always.
Oh, that's sick. I turned this on someone's PC, someone I was coaching live before, but their PC couldn't handle it. It wasn't good enough. So I guess it does reduce frame rate, but if you can use it at all, definitely a
Yes.
recommendation. I find it's best not to change the sensitivity of the mouse either in Windows or in StarCraft 2. Just keep it all neutral, don't use it, and only change the DPI or CPI
Yeah, I
of your
agree
mouse.
100%. In Windows, it should always be on 6 bars. That's the generic. Anything below that or above that, it starts getting edited, as it were.
Yeah.
So anything below that, it will start skipping pixels. Or it will like the same amount of movement will sometimes move 1 pixel and then 2 pixels after that. It's kind of hard to explain. And higher, it will start skipping pixels. So either have it in Windows on 6 out of 10, or have it in
6 out of
StarCraft
11.
6 out of 11, right? Or in StarCraft, have it between 51 and 54%.
I keep it off. I have pretty high scroll speed, so I have it like that. Reduce mouse. For this one is pretty interesting to talk about. Alerts are generally useful. They are the ones that show up on the left side, where it says like building finished and research complete. It's used for information, but if you click it, you will center over where the transmission came from the
Yes,
forge.
I think
I tended to misclick
yeah,
it a
yeah,
lot, so
yeah,
I
yeah.
turned it off.
I think I would keep it on if it was unclickable, but since I do click it sometimes, and I click it in a crucial moment where I'm trying to micro and my screen suddenly teleports away, I always have it off.
Yeah, that's my reasoning as well. I see some players have it on; they never misclick it. Great for them. It's a bonus. But yeah, if you click it, it's bad. Let's see.
Game timer, build grid are of course very useful.
This is all good stuff. Show workers. For the right side, experience points is something that I found a lot of people divided on. Basically, it's more visual clutter. You see every unit you make, every building you finish, everything you kill, there's a plus XP, which counts towards your BNet level. I'm level 79, not max yet. It's not very relevant in that sense, but the cool thing about it, which a lot of people don't know, when you kill a unit that disappeared as you shot it, like a stalker shot, marauder stimmed out, went into the fog of war, you're not sure whether it dies or not. There's only two ways to find out whether it really died. Besides game sense, is one, you look at your stalker and you see whether it got a unit kill. The other is that even as it is in the fog of war, if the shot arrived and it died, it shows plus XP while it's in the fog of war. And when you have Tempest, it can be very far indeed that they shot and you don't see it anymore because maybe Revelation ran out or you don't have units there anymore. And that's a visual confirmation that a Medivac died, a Marauder died, or whatever. That's a plus for me.
Yes, I think it's not necessary, and I have it off because I just don't like too much clutter. But I definitely think there's some merit to it, and especially if you like getting rewarded for making a kill, if you want to feel good about every kill, it's a plus as well.
Yeah, I like killing stuff and getting rewarded for it. In
Yeah,
games,
yeah.
we are very, very pacifist about war in real life. Show current order indicator. It's not a big deal, but
Yeah.
when you click somewhere, you can see whether you had issued an attack command or a move command, and exactly where you are going to be moving, because it shows a little green or red marker where
I
you clicked.
think
It's a plus, I
the
think.
biggest plus from it I've noticed is that when I'm playing very quickly and I transfer workers from one base to another, so let's say my main is mined out and I go to my fourth and I transfer my workers, sometimes you click like somewhere close to the mineral patches, but you're already looking at the minimap as you're clicking, and you start doing other stuff. But when you have the current order indicator on, you sometimes see that the order is not actually on the mineral patch.
You will see it more easily because
Yeah,
there's a visual marker
there's
remaining.
like less room for error, I guess. Or
This one basically shows size storms, time warps, fungal growth with a color coded,
yeah,
so
I
you
think
know
it's
who cast which time warp. Usually you know anyway, but it's pretty useful, especially on the lower leagues, I would say, to turn this on and bring this value up any way you like. Personally, I like 5 out of 11.
I think it's personal preference though, because like the colored scans and colored time warps can also be make things slightly difficult to see, but it also has benefits. So I think that's personal preference, but especially for Protoss, I feel like it's useful because force fields and time warps.
Yeah. So that's pretty much the StarCraft settings. You're ready to go and own people. I'm sure you will play with much greater success.
Mm-hmm.
For Windows, there's really only two things to show. I'm going to look it up on the computer first before we have to switch to the view. Basically, want to talk about the mouse and mouse acceleration?
Yes. So in Windows, there's not that many mouse settings, or not many relevant ones at least. One of them is the mouse speed, which should always be at 6 out of 11. I think you can have it at 3 out of 11 because it will give a similar result, but I think 6 out of 11 is most consistent because it moves at a 1-to-1 pixel ratio. That means that the movement of your mouse directly translates to pixels on your screen, which means you can actually touch every pixel on your screen if you would want to. And the other option is called enhanced pointer precision, I believe. I'm not entirely sure, which is actually a big fat lie. It's not enhancing your precision, it just makes your mouse move faster or slower uh, related to how fast you're moving the mouse.
So for instance, if you move from point A to B, we call it 10 distance units. You always move from A to B in a slow way. Your cursor moves very predictably on screen. But when you quickly move from A to B, your cursor on screen moves very far. So based on how quick you are, the distance changes. So it becomes unpredictable and your accuracy is actually unenhanced.
And in Windows, this setting is called enhanced pointer precision, but among people that use computers, it's generally called acceleration. And there's often settings in your mouse drivers as well for acceleration. I'd advise you to always keep stuff like that off because I don't think it benefits you.
So if we look at my screen right now, we're here in control panel. You go to mouse, you turn this little baby off. No thank you. This one should be in the middle. And any speed that you want higher or lower on your mouse, you can use in the drivers. Or if you have this cool CM Store mouse, which I have, look, we have this speed, and there's a button on it, and it becomes much less ranging over the screen, so it's easy to change. See? One more thing which I'd like to show, which is relevant for Protoss players in particular.
I think for Zerg players as well.
Yeah, you use it as well.
Yeah, I use it.
All right.
Because when you're doing the 4SR, you know, when you're just making roaches,
of course.
and
Of
you want to
course.
hold down the roaches, you start making roaches
The
more
mass
quickly.
roach
Yeah,
strategy. I'm well familiar with it. A lot of people ask me about this. They say like, Grubby, why are you so fast? And I just smile mysteriously because it makes me look the best. But actually, there's a trick, right? If you go to your hotkeys and you want to get the Grubby hotkeys, go to Unit Management. Actually, I didn't make it up. Some smart people did. You go here and you go to Choose Ability or AI Target. Think about this. For instance, you have a gateway selected, and you press Make Zealot, and then you warp in some zealots somewhere. Maybe you have several gateways. You keep having to do click, 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 click for every zealot you make.
Or for Terran, it's least useful. I think the only useful ability I could think of as Terran was Snipe.
Yeah,
and
for
for
snipe.
Zerg, it's mainly useful for creep, actually.
Now, the cool thing is, if you make your left mouse button where you choose an ability synonymous with the letter Z, when you make zealots, all you need to do is to hold down Z, and what it does is like make zealot left click, make zealot left click, but it's automatic when you hold down the key on your keyboard.
And it's in StarCraft settings. It's not like you're editing your keyboard or using macros. It's actually a hotkey setting, so it's completely
Legit
fine.
tournament settings, approved by all tournaments, allowed. So you hold down Z. If you have 20 warp gates, all you need to do is as if you're using a spray can, and 20 zealots will appear under your mouse while you hold down Z, which is much quicker than 20 clicks.
Exactly. 20 zealots or 20 creep tumors or a lot of infested Terrans actually is really good for as well.
So all you do is you go to this and you say second one Z, or if you're a Zerg and you want roaches on it, it can be an R, you know, that kind of stuff, right?
Well, for roaches this doesn't matter that much. I was talking about the repeat speed with roaches, but for Zerg you put it on C for creep tumors or on T for infested Terrans.
So you select 6 active creep tumors, you hold down C, and then you just spray can.
Or you select the queen, spray can the tumors from the queen.
One more cool thing which not everyone knows, you can have several letters working like that. So not just the Z, but you can go to the StarCraft settings, change the variables notepad, find this one, and press Z, S. And then this will appear. And then you can have stalkers as well on rapid fire. So that's pretty cool. You can have a lot of different keys on that. Pretty deep stuff, but I think you guys will be able to figure it out. The final thing is that you want to go to the keyboard settings and say the repeat delay on your keyboard should be short. So I'll show how that makes a difference. If you go to Notepad and we apply this, I'm going to hold down the Z now.
And you can visibly see the delay between when the Z is first pressed and when it starts repeating. Now if you put it on short, you'll notice that the delay between the key press and the repeat is a lot shorter, and this is very useful, especially if you're macroing in Zerg and you want to make a lot of units, and you have like 20 larvae and you don't want to like press 20 times. The repeat is so much quicker.
Yeah. So you always want to put this on short. There was one or two tournaments where I forgot, and I'm like, why are my zealots warping in so slow?
Yeah.
Very sad. That's pretty much the settings for now that pertain to StarCraft 2. Gonna look what else we were going to be talking about. Hotkeys, Windows settings. I think that's enough settings for now. Maybe
Yeah.
we can go to a little bit of benchmarks. What do you think?
I think that would be very fun. So benchmarks. We're basically going to go through VODs and show you what things me or Grubby would look at in a VOD to compare ourselves to, I guess.
So a day in the life of a pro gamer. People sometimes think that practice is only playing games. It isn't. It's like it's practicing like a scrim, like a real game. But there's a tennis player, he will hit the ball against the wall sometimes. Soccer players, they do sprinting, and also a pro gamer can train many different aspects deliberately, and deliberate practice can lead to deliberate results. Random practice, random results. So if you're just playing a game and you're always playing by feeling, you do train part of yourself of adaptability, but you may not always be able to reproduce something consistently. So even though it's not as glamorous to play a game against the computer or to be going at StarCraft 2 like it's homework, being prepared can give you a confident feeling and can give you much better results sometimes in your follow-up StarCraft 2 games.
Yes.
What we will sometimes do if we're looking for some inspiration is look for some cream of the crop games. So we'll load up a replay or a VOD from someone like Parting or Rain or maybe Flash or Innovation, Dongregu or Su, and we see how do they do what they do.
Try to
And there
find
could be some that you miss sometimes.
Yes, exactly. Try
You
to
had a
find
nice example of that.
try to find players that are least human, I guess.
Least human.
Yeah, least mistakes. Like you want to find when you're watching VODs, it's not good to watch your favorite player necessarily. It's I think, in my opinion, it's best to watch the player that makes least mistakes and plays the cleanest game.
I like watching someone who is like, in a way, like I like their style because I become very absorbent to what they're doing.
Yes.
But on the other hand, sometimes you need to expand your horizons too and to move beyond what is comfortable
Yes.
and look at someone who really plays very flawless.
Yeah, for me personally, the biggest change I've had in my own gameplay by watching VODs, and this may sound stupid, it may sound something simple and how could I ever overlooked it, but there's a lot of things in your gameplay that you overlook and you'll never notice unless you actually compare it to other players. For me, this was creep threat to my third base in ZVT for a long time. I couldn't understand why Zerg players could defend Reaper Hellion with just 3 queens, because my queens would always get kited and die. And I understood that I needed energy, and but I also needed creep threat towards my third base. And then I ended up watching some replays, I think from Sulky or Sue back in the day. And I kept I like watched very directly to every single move they were making, and the sudden realization that Sue actually only makes 1 creep tumor for like the longest time, no second, no third, and just 1. Helped me a lot CVT and allowed me to defend my third base comfortably again.
So you have some very automatic autopilot mechanisms which you may or may not be aware of, and you can't revamp everything because if you deleted everything in your head, like suddenly you'll be bronze again, but like you'll be a complete beginner. But sometimes you're like, okay, you know, I'm good at creep spread. It's like, hey, he only put down 1 creep tumor. Now I have transfuse energy. So sometimes you really need to look at every single little detail. We're gonna go into my screen here and we'll look at the latest Home Story Cup, for instance. I've loaded up a VOD of Flash against Parting. Now, one thing that we can look at sometimes, we don't always lose because of the reason that we thought we lost. Sometimes we think we lost because we lost a big engagement, or we feel that an entire race is imbalanced, but I call that the broken finger syndrome sometimes. Doctor, if I press my knee, it hurts, I press my foot, it hurts, and I press my shoulder, it hurts, but your finger was broken. The main theme of StarCraft 2 is economy and numbers. There are direct hard unit counters, and there are good micro and bad micro mistakes, but sometimes it's about numbers. So one really useful thing is to at least make sure that your numbers are correct. Once you know that they are, you can become more focused on execution, positioning, tech, micro, and so forth. So if we look at parting, for example, you can just take several whole minutes because it's easy to divide and say like, okay, what build is he doing? He's going for Blink 3 gate, and then he's transitioning into more stalkers. It's Catalina, and then we're gonna get some ad. All right. Game is over. I guess he won with a Blink all in. So you can say like, okay, how many stalkers does he have when? He won at 940. Okay, that's a build that I want to try. So you go to minute 7, for instance, and you say Blink is this far. He has this much supply. He has this much stalkers. So what I'll do is I go to Notepad and I'll be like 6 minutes, 32 probes. And the more detailed you are, the better. It'll be like this, 100, I guess. I have 4 stalkers. Blink is 98 out of 170, for instance, and go on. And then you do the same thing for 7 minutes. And you say, okay, he stopped at 38 probes. Now, another few things that you want to do is say like, okay, what is the probe count target? So basically, the ideal macro rules is use chrono boost. You say non-stop worker production, prioritize chrono on workers over all else except, and the exceptions are need a unit quickly to defend or scout something. For instance, you're gonna chrono boost the mothership core, or a stalker if you need it for defense, or an observer if you need it for widow mines, or need a tech upgrade quickly. So these are the macro rules. But sometimes you will have a worker stop, for instance. Exception is you're making a nexus or a mothership core. Of course, I'm doing it from Protoss point of view because I know that one the best, but it's the same for Zerg. Sometimes you want a queen before you make more drones, that kind of thing. Then you say, okay, I'm gonna do a 40, like a 2 base all in with 4 gas, so this is the probe target. Don't go over it. Keep to your own rules so that you know you're on the right track. So you do like this, and then you're gonna play your own game, first against the computer. Now I know that may seem dull, to go play against the computer because it's not a real opponent, but you need to see how much of this you can reproduce in a non-pressure situation. So you say, okay, this was parting benchmark of Blink all in versus T, and you say, okay, my practice game versus AI. So maybe parting supply at 7 minutes. We go look, okay, he's, what does it say? 43, something like this. You play against computer, you try to do the same thing, but you get to 39 out of 52. Then you know, okay, I'm basically doing my own race. The opponent didn't mess with me, there was no pressure, it's all down to macro that I was behind. How did that happen? And you go study all the details. Just study all the details. And then you go play a real game on ladder, and they don't even harass you, but you're 31 out of 44. 31 out of 44. It's like, okay, that's the pressure element. And then you start to try and say, well, if I don't really get harassed, I shouldn't start to like overthink things. You just do the same thing as in the against the computer. So that's kind of how benchmarking works, and it's very, very useful to see what kind of targets you're reaching. Because another time, someone asked me, hey, Grubby, PVZ, I have such an issue, mutilists are imbalanced, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, mutilists aren't imbalanced. You're probably under economy. Tell me, how many workers do you have at 6 minutes? And he said, well, 27. He went to look at replays at 27. I said, okay, I can have 34 at minute 6. It's a different build, of course. It may have different vulnerabilities. But that's kind of the range of workers that you can have at 6 minutes. 27 or 34, a huge difference. So everything gets to feel easier once the numbers are right.
Sometimes it's easier to see the things that you and a pro player does differently when you see the actual differences in numbers. it's very hard to recognize mistakes or changes in builds if you don't know what you're looking for. If you know you're a 3 worker difference at 6 minutes from another player, it's very easy to like just compare the worker timings, to just look at when he's producing workers and when he's chrono boosting the workers. If you see you're 3 units behind at a certain moment in the game, but your workers were perfectly aligned, you can relate it to when the gateway started, or how much chrono boost was spent on the gateways. But if you just generally compare and never really put on benchmarks, you'll never notice the small mistakes, like he chronoed his gateways more, or he chronoed his expansion more, his third base was started before his extra gateways, or stuff like that. It's very hard to notice those small differences between your play and the play of a pro player if you don't actually write down benchmarks. And not everyone has a second monitor and can put the VOD on one monitor and start writing down notes on the notepad on another monitor, but you can just write it down on a piece of paper. That works fine too.
Yeah, so that pretty much concludes where we wanted to talk about some of the things you can do to help yourself better.